welcome. You're watching Davos Direct from the World Economic Forum 2011 with me, Shaili Chopra. Today, of course, is possibly just the wrap-up session for Davos, even as we have a couple of them to go, even on Sunday. But essentially today, the big voices have spoken out. Every single Eurozone finance minister has spoken, even on a day when Davos is seeing some protests against the World Economic Forum 2011, as there is a faction, a revolutionary faction that believes that Davos and the World Economic Forum possibly do not even come up with solutions. So we are talking of two really diverse spectrums, one which expects to set the agenda for the rest of the year, and one that believes setting this agenda at WEF Davos is possibly just not ideal or not even worth it. Well, we're going to give you details of how things are shaping up here, but first off, all the big voices on this show today. What is the big agenda today and what have been the highlights at Davos on the day like this, when most of the European finance ministers spoke in great detail about how things are shaping up out here. Eurozone debt fears continue to be a big concern, and the crisis, rather the post-crisis management, is what has been focused on. So we had the ministers, that's the finance ministers of practically every single economy here, from Germany to the British finance minister. We had Christine Lagarde from France, all of them talking about some of these key issues that are coming up on your screen. Let's give you a sense of course, who said what. Now, it's been critical to note here, while there is a lot of praise about how Eurozone is managing its situation, it's certainly not one that has seen itself come out of the crisis easily. And therefore, there is that criticism that yes, there's easy praise, but a difficult execution or difficult save for the European economy. We had, of course, Christine Lagarde talk about it, and then we have the German finance minister saying that Germany certainly is going to see itself lead outside this Eurozone fears in terms of debt. But an important part is that there is a lot of buzz out here, and Reuters has also reported this, that there could be an extension of the loan repayment program for Ireland and for Greece, somewhat allowing them a little more breathing space in terms of fixing their debt. So all of these big stories that we're tracking for you here, including what was looking like a bit of a face-off between Christine Lagarde and Bob Diamond of Barclays. A quick look at that graphic, because it's been pretty interesting how Bob Diamond and Christine Lagarde were on the same panel, and Bob Diamond suggested that the situation in Europe has gone from bad to worse, or from chronic to acute. That is exactly something that Christine Lagarde refuted instantly. It was a bit of a tete-a-tete, but certainly one where we saw a complete refuting by Christine Lagarde, saying that's not true. In fact, when Bob Diamond said at one stage that, most bankers are thankful to the regulators for having worked out some of their fears, Christine Lagarde quipped very quickly and said, your thank you, i.e. the bankers' thank yous, should only come by making sure that they keep a close watch on sensible compensation, taking a dig at bonuses. Let's now give you a sense of what are the big voices, who's saying what, who's bullish, who's positive, what are the hits and misses. Google's Nikesh Arora, the head of global sales and operations, spoke to ET Now, talking about how Google finds itself in a bit of a struggle spot when it comes to expanding in India, largely due to infrastructure bottlenecks. But of course, there's that huge competition from Facebook. So all of that rolled into one with Nikesh Arora.
We don't worry about people who are in the market right now, because we understand Facebook, we understand the other players in the market. We worry about creating wow products for the end consumer. So our focus is, let's find amazing products that we can create. Because if you spend time worrying about competition, you're trying to make a better product than your competition. If you spend time worrying about the consumer, you're trying to build a product which they're going to love. And that's been sort of the genesis of Google Search. We designed search when there was no search, or it wasn't done the way we did it. We designed Google Maps in a way that we thought was going to be interesting for the user. We have Android, which is a new operating system, we have Chrome. So all these products have been designed with the consumer in mind, not with competition.
But even as you do that, and you have the consumer in mind, you always have to remember that the market is only this much, right? It might be expanding, but everybody else is going to try and get a piece of the pie. So where do you see Google headed in terms of shaping itself up as a player from where it is today, primarily a search player, and getting into some of the other elements here on?
Well, I don't know if we're only just a search player. A few quarters ago we announced that we have a $2.5 billion run rate in display advertising. That makes us in the top 3 players in display. And display advertising, we were not a player 3 years ago. So we've taken our efforts, we bought DoubleClick, we have YouTube, we've helped monetize certain properties on YouTube. We got into mobile advertising, we bought AdMob, now we have $1 billion run rate mobile advertising. Again, I think that makes us in the top 3 players in mobile advertising. So we believe we are targeting the advertising market. It is a $700 billion market in the world, and less than 10% is online, so there's a long way to go.
So what do the next 5 years tell you? Is this advertising piece going to become larger, do you think?
I hope so. I think the trend is our friend. All consumers are spending more and more time online. You guys are posting your videos online, so hopefully there'll be people wanting to advertise against that. And I think it's fair to say that people spend upwards of 25% of the time online, and close to about 10% of the advertising money is spent online. So I think there's a gap, and that 25% is running away. So hopefully that 10% will keep chasing it.
Right, so there's advertising and then there's this search story, but if you look at the social networking side of it, is Google trying to do a bigger push there? I mean, look at markets like India and China. They're just exploding with opportunity, aren't they?
Yes, of course. I think it's fair to say that the web is becoming more social. That is, and to be fair, what we call social media today is a collection of applications which exist both in society as well as in the web. We've been emailing or messaging each other for a long time, whether it's SMSs or emails or writing letters. And now you do that on Facebook or on other social networking sites like Orchid with your friends. We've been sharing pictures online for a while. You've been sharing videos online for a while. So it's clear that more and more of the activities done in the internet space are getting to be more social. We have many products which are social. Gmail is our email, YouTube is videos that are shared. So there are components of the social part of the web that we have as well. And I think
is that where the aggressive focus will be in the next few years?
Shaili, you have to understand, we've been in existence for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I don't think there is a company in the history of business that has gone from 0 to $30 billion in 10 years. So I think we've been reasonably aggressive, and hopefully we'll continue that aggression or that ambition in trying to drive both our top line as well as great consumer products.
Even as you say that, it takes me to think about conglomerates as a concept. Yeah, when you say 0 to $30 billion, one has to think of the fact that sometimes when they do become so large, the numbers start telling a story. Sometimes it's bigger than what even you had expected, for example, and therefore size becomes difficult to deal with. Complacency sets in. It's happened with Microsoft at some stage. It's happened with
how long has Microsoft been in existence?
Even then, remember, different timings also have meant different rates of growth. So I guess there's a bit of a difference there. So in terms of keeping up with that, is it going to be a bit of a challenge in terms of incremental growth rates?
Look, nobody said business is easy, right? It's always challenging to go out and build a business, and so far we've tried different things. Allows us to be an innovative company. We've done a bunch of stuff in trying to drive our revenue growth. In 10 years, we've launched a search business. We bought YouTube. We made it the second largest search engine in the world. Yeah. If now you believe there's a video on the web, you go to YouTube. We took maps.
But right now you're counting the past glory. So what I'm asking...
well, I can't tell you future glory because you've got to wait for future glory to happen. So I can only tell you we have a track record, and our track record seems to be reasonably good.
Okay, so you're already looking at things like Android. I mean, that's not...
Android, we're turning on 300,000 phones a day, one phone every 3 seconds. So, 2 years ago when I was in Davos, people were saying, you guys are launching an operating system. How is that going to do? Apple has this phenomenal product called iPhone. What's going to happen? And today we're standing talking about, 300,000, that's great. What are you going to do for me now?
So are you surprised with the success of Android thus far?
We're delighted with the success of Android. We have a Chrome browser, which is used by over 100 million people. If you remember, there have been other browser companies in the past which don't exist anymore. And we've been able to go in that same space and build a browser which more and more people are using. In fact, India is one of the markets where we have the highest market share in our browser. So we have a Chrome operating system which we're talking about. Yeah. And I can't tell you if it's going to be wonderful or not because we have to wait to see how it pans out. But hopefully in 2 years when we're talking, we'll be talking about the Chrome OS as well.
What do the India and China markets spell for you at this stage? And, I think everybody's focusing on them, but they seem to be latching on technology by themselves rather than having too many players come in there and make too much of a noise or an effort.
I think they're very different markets, both of them. I think China has shown tremendous amount of growth from the user perspective as well as from the perspective of, people having access to internet and broadband. India has not been as rampant in its growth in the mobile broadband side or the generally fixed line broadband side. And I think what's happening in China, you're seeing tremendous amount of growth. You're seeing a lot of local entrepreneurs. And 700 million mobile users is a market in itself. It's probably competes with all of Western Europe. So it's a huge market. There are lots of local entrepreneurs. We have a few hundred people there who are also doing innovative things, and we have a bunch of people selling advertising in the market. India it's struggling on the infrastructure end, and we're not building it as fast. We're hoping that with all these new spectrum licenses happening, lots of different players trying to compete in the market, they will drive more incremental growth from a broadband perspective. We have a reasonably good business in India. We like it. We'd like it to be bigger. But I think it's not for lack of our trying. It is for lack of having enough consumers using data services.
So your priority emerging market still would remain China?
No, I see. Look, the good news is when to your point about when you become a large company, you actually have a lot more resources at your behest. So we can actually carry on multiple strategies around the world. We are as assertive about Brazil, Russia, India as we are about China. And Africa is an interesting market. We're already there trying to figure out how we can spur the growth of broadband, how we can create awareness for the internet in that market too.
With the various economic headwinds, how do you see the technology market doing? Both U.S. recovery seems to be, a much awaited piece, but Europe is struggling and emerging markets are a hotspot.
That's right. I think the economic trends translate on the revenue side sometimes. And sometimes, like last year when you were in Davos, people were talking about the economic meltdown. At that point in time, you saw companies hold back. They became cautious. They weren't willing to spend as assertively until they realized the only way to get out of it was to grow their way out of it. So you saw a little bit of easing, stability, and companies started spending again in the Western world, even to some degree in the emerging markets. I think that is what has happened, but there is a secular trend which is stronger than the economic trend. The secular trend is there are more and more people going online and more people spending time online. So that trend to some degree overshadows for now the economic headwinds. Now, as that trend continues to make things bigger, it will get buffeted by the economic headwinds, but hopefully by then there'll be tailwinds sooner.
Okay, so in terms of Nikesh Arora as well as Google, do you see yourself sticking around Google? So much being talked about, you being potentially poached by the Tatas?
You shouldn't believe everything you read in a newspaper.
Sometimes even we report them.
I know, as I said, don't believe everything you read. You should believe what people say as opposed to what is written. Look, I love what I do. In this conversation we talked about search, we talked about operating systems, we talked about advertising. There's a whole bunch of content we haven't talked about, Google News. Every day there's a new product being thought of at Google, and there's a new exciting challenge that gives it's intellectually phenomenally stimulating and is growing. When I started...
We all love our jobs, but there are always opportunities that could be better, right?
No, I don't think there's a better job out there.
So what you're essentially saying is that you're not interested in the Tata job.
I love my job.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. I love my job.
Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right, this is Nikesh Arora giving you the big picture of Google and certainly admitting that he's not interested in the Tata job. At the same time, he goes on to say every 3 seconds an Android phone is being produced. That and much more will continue here on ET Now. For now, Davos Direct takes a short break. The quotable quotes that are coming out of Davos 2011, the World Economic Forum, here they are.
Show brought to you by Velgare Global Financial Services, growing with you every day. Aquaguard Total, Panika Doctor.
Different banking solutions from HSBC, the world's local bank.
Presents ET Zig Wheels Awards 2010 in association with Servo. Find out which cars and bikes will drive home with the best honors in the automotive industry. These times only on ET Now.
Brought to you by Apollo Tires in association with Servo, India's #1 lubricants.
Welcome Welcome back. You're watching Davos Direct with me, Shaili Chopra. One of the great things of being at the World Economic Forum is that you get to just rub shoulders with practically everyone, the CEOs, the economists, the policy makers, the cabinet ministers, social entrepreneurs, who have you. In fact, the most interesting part was just a few minutes in the sun. You'd probably see Jean-Claude Trichet standing right next to you and soaking in the mood. You'd probably just be walking past George Osborne, many of them including the UK Prime Minister, Kamal Nath, Anand Sharma, all of them very chilled out.